Thank you very much for staying. Welcome back. Now, Trade Minister Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen has reaffirmed government's commitment to executing the One District, One Factory program. The Trade Minister says plans are advanced for its completion. He was speaking during the sword-cutting event of the office complex for Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry at Osu here in Accra.
The new two-office-story complex, when completed, will be the new head office for the chamber, which until now occupies a rented apartment of the World Trade Center building. At the sword cutting for the office complex at Osu in Accra, Trade Minister Alan Kyerematen stated his outfit was committed to improving trade in Ghana. According to him, government industrialization agenda, including the One District, One Factory, is not displaced at all, as is being speculated by some people. Alan Kyerematen stated that government's close relations with the chamber will help address various issues, including the cost of doing business in the country.
We've embarked on again probably the most significant industrial transformation program ever to have been introduced in this country, which is based on 10 pillars. There's the stimulus package, there's the One District, One Factory initiative, which is seeking to bring industry to the doorstep of every Ghanaian. We've also identified a number of strategic anchor initiatives, industries, that is going to be the new growth poles for our economy. We are talking about developing a petrochemical industry. We are talking about an integrated bauxite and aluminium industry, an iron and steel industry.
On his part, President of the Chamber, Nana P.H. Dankwa I, was of the view that the construction of the office complex complements the Chamber's resolve to provide an office space to support its members and other business startups.
This building, Mr. Minister, seeks to achieve the aforementioned issues, and in particular deepening business linkage between local and international investors. Honorable Minister, permit me to give you or give the audience the specifications of this project. The GNCCI building complex is an elevated two-story building estimated at a cost of $3.2 million US. It is our expectation that the GNCCI building complex will get the needed support for states and non-state actors and completed according to the schedule.
The two-story building is estimated to cost $3.2 million with provisions for future expansion.
The Executive Director of the Third World Network Africa, Dr. Yao Graham, is asking Ghana and other West African countries to demand a renegotiation of the Economic Partnership Agreement with the European Union. This is because the decision by one of the biggest markets, Britain, to exit the Union will be a disadvantage to countries that have already signed the pact. He said this in an interview with Joy Business on the sidelines of a roundtable discussion on future of cooperation between the European Union and Africa.
Set up a framework which takes account of this unevenness so that all African countries in the long term are beneficiaries. This is a problem in how the CFTA has been designed. One of the reasons why we have this problem is that the CFTA has taken the trade concessions that Africa has made to other countries as its starting point. Let's take the EPA, the Economic Partnership Agreement. Under the EPAs, African countries have decided to liberalize 80% of their markets for European goods, which means that if we want intra-African trade to be beneficial to us, we should give each other even more liberalization than we're giving to the Europeans. So this has led to a very radical and very fast agenda of liberalization. But that may not necessarily be the way, because in fact, those of us who criticize the concessions we made to Europe and the US and so on, we argue that for African trade integration to work, it provides a moment for us to say, wait a minute, if it's going to work, we must go back and ask questions of the mistakes that we made in our relation to Europe. So Europe, for example, at the time that the EPA concessions were made, Britain was part of Europe. Brexit means Europe has left. For many countries, Britain is the biggest market. If they are no longer part of the European Union, then it's a major dislocation of the understanding. It provides an occasion for us to go back and say, let's renegotiate the CPA. So the foundations of the CFTA, in terms of the trade regime, is problematic. It has led to some very radical and accelerated, things, which are the reasons why some countries are not happy with the content. Secondly, the process has been flawed. It's been rushed in a corner by a few technocrats and a few regional institutions, and has not had the discussion that it should have in country, so that people understand why this thing is necessary and the consequences and repercussions of signing these agreements.
So are you saying that because Britain is moving out from the European Union, there's the need for Africa to go back, West Africa to go back to renegotiate the EPA?
Yeah, because it constitutes almost a force majeure in terms of the assumptions underlying the EPA. And really, in that sense, in addition to all the other problems, African countries have a legitimate case for saying, this is not what we signed up to. Let's go back to the table. And there are some voices in Europe who are saying the same thing. If we did that, then we'll be improving the climate for how the CFTA could be ultimately beneficial to African countries.
Let's now turn attention to the banking industry, and the Atwima Kwangoma Rural Bank in the Ashanti region says it has exceeded the Bank of Ghana's minimum capital requirement for rural banks of 1 million Ghana cedis by over 200%. Officials say the bank is now insulated from the option of merging with other banks to enable its stay in business. CEO of the bank, Dr. Safo Kantanka, revealed this during the opening of a new branch at Kronom in Kumasi. This is the 8th branch of the bank in the region. Nana Yaojima reports.
Kwangoma Rural Bank's capital adequacy ratio stands at 45%, above the expected figure of 10%. Other indices include non-performing loans at 5%, which falls within the minimum set by the Bank of Ghana. Chief Executive Officer Dr. Safo Kantanka attributes the achievement to prudent management. He wants all financial institutions to adopt proper internal control systems to protect their businesses.
Corporate governance. People find it very difficult to distinguish between the job of the board and that of management. Job business, it formulates policies, and then they give the management the opportunity to implement those policies, and they must supervise. They shouldn't go and sleep. So where there is effective supervision, then you'll be able to put things in a very sound way. So I think that I would say poor corporate governance, where we have very good corporate governance, and where you have proper internal control systems. You must put in place internal control systems, and you shouldn't take things for granted.
Dr. Safo Kantanka spoke to Loud Business on the sidelines of the official opening of a new branch at Kronon. It brings to 9 the bank's branches in the Ashanti region as management seeks to leverage on technology. Patrick Owusu is board chairman.
We cannot operate well in a competitive environment without paying attention to innovation and technology. We have in the pipeline the introduction of agency banking and ATM. We have currently introduced what we term in the banking industry as Mobi Collect, which monitors and controls Susu collection.
Nana Yaojima reporting.
The general manager of La Community Rural Bank, Peter Tehova, says the replacement of Universal Bank's base rate with the Ghana reference rate will have corresponding drop in their lending rates because of a pull effect. However, he says they would have to wait for an advice from the Apex Bank, which regulates rural and community banks, for a new formula to calculate their lending rates. Mr. Tehova was of the view that the current interest rate regime is causing a mismatch between budgeted revenue and actual revenue of the bank. He was speaking in an interview at a ceremony where La Community Bank presented scholarships to needy but brilliant students of the area.
Rural banks also have their own association, and for now we have not yet heard from that association, who are regulated by the Apex Bank. of Ghana. So we are yet to be apprised with whether that reference rate will apply to the Association of Rural and Community Banks as well. But for now, it's only for the universal banks who used to have the base rate system of lending. They are to replace the base rate with the Ghana reference rate for now. The pull effect will force us to come down, but as to the modalities and how it will be called, what kind of formula to adopt, we are yet to be advised by the Apex Bank. The challenges we face currently is in terms of the interest rate regime, because all the rates are falling. Our lending rates are supposed to fall, but we have had a budget which took into account the old rates. So there's going to be a mismatch between budgeted revenue and then actual revenue because of the attempt to force down interest rates.
Now let's just stay further in the banking sector and intensify strict regulation of the banking sector and institute additional measures to protect depositors. That's the advice coming from the Council of State to the Bank of Ghana after a meeting between the two institutions. George Wiafe has been following this engagement and joins me here in the studio for more updates. George, tell us more about this meeting and why has the Council of State now decided to back?
So apparently the letter that was sent to the President by these indigenous banks, apparently the Council of State, they were also copied in this letter. So they thought it wise that we should call the governor and engage the governor as well as the Bank of Ghana why they are taking certain measures in trying to stabilize things on the banking sector. Well, what came out of this meeting was that after some extensive engagement, don't forget that these indigenous banks have written to the President, asking the President to deal with some issues in the banking sector. Key among these issues are plans by the Bank of Ghana to increase the minimum capital or the capital that every bank needs before it can operate in Ghana from 120 million Ghana cedis to 400 million Ghana cedis, and you should meet this capital by December 31. And so these banks were trying to engage the President to intervene. Why don't you let the governor or the Bank of Ghana stagger the rate at which you have to meet this requirement to 2022. So the Council of State thought, okay, let's also step in, let's engage the governor, let's get a better understanding of the situation, because when the going gets tough, the President might fall on us also in terms of the advice on the way forward. So after this engagement, they thought that, okay, the Bank of Ghana is on track, therefore go ahead with whatever that you're doing to try and sanitize the industry and then also protect depositors.
Now, so earlier the President had set up a 10-member committee to actually look into these issues. Now the Council of State is also coming out with its own version. What is going to happen?
It's interesting in the biblical world, they'll say that whose word will you believe, or who would have the final say. Sure. Now the Council of State might have a role in advising the President. Now this 10-member presidential committee that will have 3 members from the Finance Ministry, 3 members from the Bank of Ghana, and 3 members from these local banks, as well as a chair appointed by the President, will start work next week and are expected to present their report to the President somewhere in May. So if this committee presents their recommendations to the President and see that, Mr. President, stagger the increment or the requirement for these banks, extend the deadline. And the Council of State also tells the President that, Mr. President, we believe the Bank of Ghana is doing the right thing. Let them go ahead. Who would the President listen to? But it's interesting because, but some are saying that, indeed, it tells us that the Vice President want the capital to be kept at 400 and implemented December. The Finance Minister is also of that school of thought. And then the Governor of the Bank of Ghana also believes that let's meet the capital by December. Well, others who were in the meeting, Senior Minister Yosaf Mafo and Insurance Minister of Trade, appears to be on the other side. So if you look at Council of State, the Vice President, the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, and the Finance Minister, these individuals, together with the Council of State, they might have their way and ensure that if you can't meet the capital requirement, then you have to merge.
George, does it mean that the independence of the Bank of Ghana is still intact?
If you look at what the Council of State is saying, and if you read the statement carefully, it looks like they also want to protect the independence of the Bank of Ghana. And it looks like the Bank of Ghana might have their way in ensuring that if you cannot meet the minimum capital requirement, then you have to merge. And don't forget, we are racing the time. We are looking up to the fact that by June you should have put everything in place to meet. Otherwise, the Bank of Ghana will write to you that you can look at maybe if La Community Bank was a commercial bank, they'll tell them, why don't you merge with another bank? I mean, as a board chair or as an MD.
For now, who has the final say?
Maybe the Lord Jesus Christ.
Thank you very much, George Wiafe, for that update, and George Wiafe sharing some thoughts on the decision by the Council of State to also advise on who should persist with the issue of the minimum capital requirement. Let's now move on further. And Finance House NDK Financial Services has begun moves with some foreign banks to help reduce cost of guarantees. Now, the move has become necessary as a result of increased charges by some local banks when offering guarantees for various projects. When successful, it will position the financial service company to offer guarantees to a larger number of people to finance bigger projects. Ebenezer Sabote has more in this report.
NDK Financial Services is licensed by the Bank of Ghana to issue letters of credit and guarantees for its clients upon request as part of the service provision. Using the local Ghanaian banks to deliver the service makes it more expensive for clients as compared with having a foreign bank to offer the service. Divisional Head of Credits at NDK, Felix Hagan, disclosed that the company has already begun moves to partner some foreign banks soon.
It's something we've been doing for some time now. But in terms of how we route it now through local banks, so when the client comes to us, we go to our local partners, the banks, to do the LCs for us. And it's a bit expensive, so we are discussing with foreign banks to get a line so that when we get these requests, we do it directly through to them to take out the bit of the local banks. It becomes cheaper for us and also cheaper for the clients, and bottom line, to make our clients happier. That's it.
When you say foreign banks, is it foreign banks that are established here in Ghana or?
No. You know, most LCs are routed to, I mean, if I would say outside. So for foreign banks, we're talking more of banks outside Ghana.
He was speaking to Joy Business at the sidelines of a cybersecurity seminar for clients of NDK in Accra. The seminar provides clients the opportunity to learn best practices in protecting their businesses and personal online accounts. Speaking on the main subject for the seminar, Deputy Managing Director of the company, Kwoko Ayisa, also noted that there is a need for the collaboration and cooperation among stakeholders within the financial sector to consistently preempt cyber attacks.
We have as one of our strategic objectives to be a technologically responsive company by 2020. So for us, we wanted to engage our clients, to educate them, to let them be aware of the threats and the issues of the cyber fraud, so that when we roll out our products, they are an informed, as it were, an informed customer base. So really it was to ensure that our customers are able to deal with and are able to have the knowledge that is required to handle all the challenges that are going on right now in the cyberspace.
Have you had cases of such nature?
Oh yes, I believe there was a testimonial within the seminar where a client informed or shared that a suspicious email was sent to NDK asking for some of his monies to be transferred. But one of our staff, because we do train our staff, they have protocols that they observe as to security questions that they would ask. So one of the staff contacted him, but he wasn't in the country, so she ignored the email. And then later when he came around, they were able to engage and identify that someone had hacked into his email and sent an email purporting to be him.
In 2016 alone, over 1,000 fraud incidents were reported to the Bank of Ghana. These amounted to losses of approximately 244 million Ghana cedis.
Research Institute under the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research is calling for a focus on production of coconuts in the country. It says Ghana can leverage the growing demand for coconuts to improve its economy. Karen Dodu has more.
Most of the world's production of coconuts comes from the tropical regions, with Asia accounting for 73% of the world's total output. The coconut industry is the highest net foreign exchange earner of agriculture exports in the Philippines, accounting for about 1.5% of GDP. It currently employs some 20 million people and earns more than $10 million annually from exports. The Oil Palm Research Institute, OPRI, of Ghana is under the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR. One of its mandates is to carry out research on coconuts and offer technical support to coconut cultivation. Acting Director of OPIR, Emmanuel Ando Mensah, believes that more concentration on the production of coconuts could help transform the country's economic fortunes.
It has a huge potential. It is a commodity that has been identified as an investment crop, which can be used to create wealth, create jobs in the rural populations. And it's also seriously untapped. When you come to coconut, it is mainly the copra, the oil. But meanwhile, you can talk about a lot of products. And these will form basis of job creation and wealth creation and so forth.
Coconut has been a cash crop for decades. The fruit can be used for several commercial purposes. For instance, the coconut oil is well noted for its health value. It is currently competing with other vegetable oils. Now, very refreshing coconut there, and the demand for the coconut fruit is growing worldwide, not just to satisfy taste, but it's also turning around some economies. Now, although Ghana is not exploring the full potential of its coconuts through exports, the OPRI believes that more value can be added to a locally grown coconuts. Reporting for Joy Business, Karen Dodu.
And finally, before we go, players in the agricultural industry have been urged to take their businesses a step further by harnessing technology and innovation to their advantage. Founder and principal architect of Ajay Associates, Sir David Ajay, says the only way architecture can shoot ahead and make more gains in the economy is through modernization. He was speaking to Insurado on the Executive Lounge. We'll bring you this particular story in our subsequent bulletins. And that's it for the marketplace today. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Many thanks for watching and have a great weekend. Have a good afternoon.